Hey there, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group with your end of day recap for Wednesday. And interesting day that we had today. So Apple had earnings today. A lot of the the chip names were up nicely, and Nasdaq was up what about 80 basis points, I believe, when we walked in today. And they kind of sold them off today. I would say a big sell program this morning. So Nasdaq or the Qs ended up about 40 basis points today, but literally right on the open. You didn't really get much of a chance after that, all the way to about 11 o'clock. And you could see the volume here. So if you kind of zoom in here on the Nasdaq, I mean, look at the volume today. I mean, this kind of tells you what's going on in this market right now. And I think we could have more of this. With just heavy selling going on, where people want to get out of the market right now. If you look at the S&P, notice S&P futures a little heightened volume, but not like even if you look at the Qs. I mean, look at the volume in the Qs in the first hour and a half of the day. So they took advantage of, most likely some long holders probably took advantage of the move in Apple today, and just said, hey, you know what? I'm running for the hills a little bit right now. So does this make sense? I mean, you turn on CNBC and there, there's a lot of, even though the fear and greed index, which I believe is still up right now. Um, let's see if I can find that. I think the fear and greed index is still, it was 65 when I checked it before. Let's survey says, what do we have? My computer's really still, still a 67. So, to me, I was talking about this in the trading room earlier. The VIX is only at 1028. It did spike on that selling pressure till 11 o'clock, and then drove off. So could we have more of this selling pressure go on? I think there's just not enough fear in the system right now. So that's kind of what the major move was today. We saw a lot of things kind of get hit early on. Again, some of those semi plays that were up pre-market on the back of earnings. Same thing with the semiconductor. A lot of volume. Semiconductor ETF, a lot of volume till about 11 o'clock, and then that was it. You see the volume really trail off, and a slight grind up for the rest of the day. Also, option activity was very quiet while this whole move down was happening today, and then we started to see buying come in with everything else. But it does look like it's contained to a couple different areas. Small caps were also down pretty significantly. Remember, we saw this MDY mid cap put buyer 2 days ago. You could see the volume here as well in IWM. This didn't recover, so there was a little bit of damage done technically. Small caps really didn't come back like everything like Nasdaq did. SPY ended up 5 basis points. The Dow, which again I think is a very flawed index. I really don't look at the Dow that much because one or two names could just tilt the whole thing because it's a price weighted index. But small caps didn't really come back, and they broke below the 50-day moving average. So you have to honor that. I think from if you look at some of the big names, Amazon is also at that 50-day moving average. So really kind of a crucial area. We had this big reversal bar on earnings, and since then it hasn't really been able to find a footing. Hammer bar on the 50-day moving average, sometimes that works pretty well. Same thing if you look over at Google, which I don't have the 100-day moving average on this chart, but I will bring the one over that does. But you also have a hammer bar on Google at a nice place. So if I go to a one-year chart on Google, you can see right on the 100-day moving average. So they're holding in here, both Amazon on the 50 and Google on the 100-day moving average. I view that as positive. We'll see if we can maybe close. I was talking about this morning in yesterday's video that these were basically just inside days. You had a bearish engulfing bar a couple days ago in Google. So we'll see if it can actually reclaim. I would say if Google gets above 960, which may be a little bit late, but I think that would be something to watch. You already had a close above, or a hold of the 100-day moving average. So I think if you just be patient with these things and kind of wait for a little bit of confirmation, that should kind of give you a little bit of an edge. I did a lot of day trading because, as I said, the morning was quite quiet in terms of option activity. There was a little bit of Corning calls that went up. Micron kind of went up a couple times today. We saw a big lot of Micron calls that should be here someplace. Yeah, next week's calls, there was 11,000 of those. And then we started to see some buyers in a couple other things. VMC, this is a post-earnings trade. If you remember, we saw VMC calls. Similar trade, I think it was either November or December calls that went up in VMC. So it's always convincing, or a little bit more convincing to me, when we see calls right after they report earnings, maybe on a little bit of a dip. So in this name, this is another material name. You can see this thing come back from the lows. So I think they bought those close to the lows today after earnings. So kind of hung in there pretty good. Bloomin' Brands. This is a restaurant. I'm trying to remember who this is. I think it's what's the Australian steak place? Outback, I think it might be. So they have a couple different restaurants, but I like to see dip buyers come in. So after a move from 21 bucks to 17, an aggressive dip buyer came in for Bloomin' Brands. Haven't seen calls go up in this name in a long time, but nice aggressive call buyer in Bloomin' Brands. These calls were swept. We also saw a nice fight Facebook. So I played Facebook at the end of the day. Usually, I'll kind of give away my tact for how I day trade a little bit during the day. Is I wait for a moving average crossover. So I've got the 5 and the 20 exponential moving averages. So here was your crossover for Qs, but you kind of see the same thing. I did not play Amazon, but a bunch of people played Amazon in the room today. Nice crossover of the moving averages, the yellow crossing over. Same thing with Google. Google happened a little bit earlier, kind of hung in there for a little bit, but all the way to the bottom of value, and that's where you take your target. Same thing with Amazon. On a day where it's a big dip, you get involved here, take your target here, bottom of value. Very difficult for a name to get into value after it started the day below. It's just hard for it to do. It can happen, but it's not easy. I played Facebook. There was some nice Facebook calls that went up. So the Facebook calls went up here. I waited. I said, let me wait because I've been faked out before. So I always wait until the moving averages crossed over. So it was not a home run trade, but a nice little scalp from here. I took a target up here. I was looking for the same thing, to move to the bottom of value. I didn't get it perfectly, but I played some August calls for Facebook. So that's how my trading was. Also CBS, another name on the dip. CBS was down. I don't even know the reason why it was down so much, but right on the bottom of the day we saw a call buyer. So this worked out pretty well as well. Amazon, not Amazon, which I'm missing one of the trades here, but BABA, we saw two-way flow. There's some people on Twitter, they only talk about the bullish flow. If you're in a position and there's a big put buyer, you want to know about it. So there was some weekly BABA puts that went up. I never get that. I never get why people only talk about bullish flow. Even if you're a bear, you want to know so this was the weekly puts that went up. It is what it is. Somebody bought puts. There we go. Another order that caught. Well, let me wait till I'll get to the put side in just a second. There was a little bit of Amazon calls. There was VNTV calls that went up. LPLA. Then this order, I think there may be a drug decision coming out for Zine, but a couple times they came in for Zine at the end of the day. So September 22 and a half. So what I did, Zine is really far away. The strike that they chose, I guess I mean, 22 and a half strike. That's a decent ways away. So what I did was, I made this into a call spread. So if something good is going to happen in Zine, somebody's reaching to go all the way up, and expensive, right? So obviously some of these drug names, the implied volatility is really a lot of money. Yeah, 300% implied volatility. So you can make it into a call spread, and that's basically what I did. I think I bought the 17 and a half 22s for around $1. So small trade there, and some of these things where the implied volatility is just through the roof like this. you're kind of throwing money at something and hoping for a home run, hoping that the name has an absolute home run. Now, couldn't now who knows? With the drug announcement, sometimes you could get a home run. You could also get a big fizzle as well. So call spread, I think, if you really want to get in there, is a good way to play it. DHR, look at what happened with this stock. Um, Name spiked. They purchased the August 1st, and the August were way too wide. So I went and I purchased the Septembers, and I made was not a huge trade for me, but I think I got for let me just go to my blotter for the day. But small trade, DHR target 160, paid 120. Here's my Facebook trade as well. Facebook Target and CBS. So DHR was a little trade. Um, then we also saw just more activity at the end of the day. Big win buyer again. It seems like every time win has been falling, somebody comes in and does some crazy trade. So for this one, 2,900 contracts, December 130 calls for $8. $2 million in premium. Symantec was another name. A lot of pre-earnings flow, which is very, very noisy, but it looks like this one worked out. Somebody went and they bought Symantec calls today. And then YNDX. Somebody went in and also bought a little bit of YNDX. Remember, YNDX made this big move up and really hasn't and has given it all back. This big move up for Yandex, and it's fizzled all the way from $32. That's my word of the day, fizzle. $32 down to 28, but a dip buyer coming in here right on the 50-day moving average. So I like that trade in Zandex. Tricky name. I've played Zandex a couple times and have had one time I just wasn't patient enough. I missed this trade. I actually unwound. I was in Yandex calls for probably about 2 months and probably unwound him someplace in here, and then this big move happened, and I was headbutting myself after that happened. But anyway, so those were some of the that's the option activity for the day. We continue to see, which also gets me a little bit worried. We've been continuing to see put buyers in Asia. So it's not so much that it's South Korea. It's South Korea, and there was a put buyer yesterday in EWS Singapore. I mean, these things have had huge, huge runs this year, and it looks like they're either protecting by buying puts, or maybe thinking that these have gone up too far, too fast. So put buyer today in EWI. This is the South Korea ETF. Keep in mind that Samsung is about 30% of this. So before you jump to conclusions and think that it's a hedge against North Korea, I think it's just more or less somebody saying, hey, this thing is up huge this year. Just like we saw a big put order in AAXJ as well yesterday. So I think people are thinking some of these Asia equities have run up very, very quickly this year, and maybe somebody's either looking to hedge a little bit of a long portfolio at this point after some of these things are up like 25-30% year to date, much more than the US market, or they're speculating that they're going to have a little bit of a correction. But it's been consistent the last couple days of the put buying in Asia stocks. So again, keep in mind in this EWI, it's 35% Samsung. So not so much. I don't really think, who knows? I don't know why they buy puts, but I don't think it's. I think if there's something that goes on with North Korea, everything's going to go down. I think this is more specific. All right, so that's today's recap. I will see you guys back in the trading room bright and early Thursday morning. Have a great night. Thank you.